Welcome to Missing in Ohio. We are a new podcast devoted to telling the stories of Ohio's missing loved ones. I am your host, Kelly Hammonds. This is Chapter 1, The Disappearance of Andrew Chapman. Andrew Gray Chapman, also known as Andy to his family and friends, is a missing adult from Columbus, Ohio. Andy was last seen December 14, 2006 in the Hilltop area. In the past 12 years, Andy's family has been through many twists and turns while being left with more questions than answers. Within a year, Andy went from a husband and father working for the city to a man struggling with addiction to a missing person. Andy's missing persons case has been opened, closed, and opened again due to law enforcement considering him a fleeing felon after Andy failed to show up for court. Today, I will be joined by Andy's mom, Judy, and his sister, Amy. Hello, ladies, and why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about Andy?
Sure, he was my son. He was the world to me. He was the second born of 5 children. His brother died at 5 years old when Andy was only 9. Andy was just a happy child. He did not do so well in school as he got older. When his dad and I got divorced, it kind of, I think, started going downhill. And he just was he loved his wife, and he loved his son. Don't know how else you talk about him other than that he was just a great kid and a loving husband, a loving father.
The main thing about Andy is just that, he's a father, and I think that's the one thing that I do want to kind of point out is that, he's got a child that hasn't seen his dad, since he was 3. And, now that he's 15 and just watching him grow and struggle and try to deal with, his father, being gone. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Can you tell the listeners a little about Andy as a father?
He was the best dad to that child. He smothered that child with love, and so I just think that he's missing out on that, and I think that's the biggest thing with Andy is he's missing out on so many family things, and he was such a caring person and genuine and loving and compassionate, and the family misses that. They miss that connection.
What was Andy's life like leading up to his disappearance?
Okay. The weeks up to when Andy went missing were not out of the ordinary. I knew where he was staying and the 2 friends he was staying with, their first names, and I went over to visit. Last time I saw him was on his birthday, and then he went missing. And then I had a phone call from him in December. And he wanted to see me because he had something to give to me. And I was sick that day. I could not drive all the way to Columbus to see him. And when I got well and went back to work, I went over to visit, and that's when I found out both units, the people had moved out. So there was no more information about him. All I had was the 2 first names.
Was Andy communicating regularly with friends and family before his disappearance?
Oh, all the time. He had a young child. I had a young child. His son and my son are 9 months apart. One was born 1 month. The next month I found out I was pregnant, so they're 9 months apart. So they were both, infants. And so we had these 2 new babies. Andy had just gotten married. We had a new sister-in-law. I mean, we were always together, always going out to eat, always over at their house, having cookout. I mean, we were always together. Taking the babies to the ice cream festival, taking them to, COSI, taking them all over the place. So we were always together. And just like I said, in a blink of an eye, this addiction that we just didn't see coming just destroyed all of that. And his wife, she did everything that she could, to keep that together and to, to help him. And when she just felt that she couldn't she couldn't take enough, which is, understandable, to protect her and the kids and to not have them around that. And so, but before that, we were always together, always doing stuff.
And Andy was not doing well since he was on drugs, but we did see him because I had to be with him when he saw his son, so he would come up and stay at our house every other weekend. I get to see him a lot and talk to him.
You mentioned Andy had been struggling with addiction. Do you mind talking about that with us?
And I'm not sure exactly when or how I got started on taking marijuana. But it just escalated from there. And he tried to get sober. He tried 3 times to get sober, and he'd stay sober for a little while, and he'd just fall right back into it again. And that was the sad part, just to watch and not be able to do anything for him.
The family knew about the addiction and tried everything that we could to help him with it. My father put him into rehab that year. I want to say it was 2006, at the beginning of the year. So we really were kind of rallied around him to get him back on his feet. Then about the summer of 2006 is because he was staying with me. He got another apartment, and then he started using again. And so I think at the time when he went missing, the family was so distraught about the substance abuse which is why I think we thought that he did just leave, that he was using and he didn't want to be around us because he chose that addiction over us. So watching that decline of somebody, and so when he first went missing, it was kind of it was also a bitter feeling towards him of, how could you choose this addiction over your family? How could you? So I think we didn't want to believe that he was missing. I think we just wanted to believe that he was just out doing his own thing and that he would come back when, he needed us. When he needed to get clean and sober, I figured that he would have come back. And after, a couple of years, we knew there was something going on. He would have never have gone that long without having any contact with us.
When did the family decide it was time to report Andy missing?
So my mom was the one who actually filed the missing persons report. Andy was living over in the Hilltop area, and he called my mom. My mom worked over there, and she lived an hour away, but she worked down in Columbus, and so he called her and said that he needed to see her right away. This was in December of 2006, and Mom was homesick that day, so she couldn't get down to see him. And the way that she describes it was that he was kind of in a panic. I really need you to come down here. I need to give you something. Well, unfortunately, Mom wasn't able to make it down there. Now, when she finally was able to make it down there, which I believe was 2 or 3 days later, the apartment that he was in was empty. And then that was the last contact that anybody had with him. My mom filed the missing persons report in January of 2007. So that's why there's 2 different dates for the date that we listed him missing. I believe the Ohio Attorney General site has May 8th, and then, or excuse me, not May 8th, December 8th, and then NamUs, I think, has December 14th, because we kind of used the date that my mom last spoke to him, not the last time we actually saw him.
So back in 2006, when Andy first went missing, tell listeners what the family thought. Did you think he could have walked away, or did you think something bad happened?
When Andy first went missing, the family, it was 12 years ago. And so, our family was kind of like, okay, is he missing or did he take off? And so for a really long time, our family was really divided about that, of whether Andy, was actually missing or if, he did leave on his own. And I think it's kind of split between the men and the women. The women are pretty much like, no, we know Andy. He never would have done anything like this. He would have never left his family. He would have made some sort of contact with all of us. And the men, it seems like it's a little more, he left on his own, he doesn't want to be found.
Judy, you never thought that Andy could have just walked away from his life?
No, we've never doubted it and something other than that. He would just never do that. He was not street smart. He just, like I said, he and I were very, very close, and he always kept in contact with us, and with his sister, and Andy were very close, and he just wouldn't do this. We just feel maybe there was foul play involved in this. There's a possibility when you are mixed up with crowd that does drugs.
What can you tell us about the people that Andy was living with?
Because when we come to our house, we would take them back down to that location and drop them off. And I only met them once. Andy was staying with them, and all three of them were gone. We couldn't track down the people we were staying with because I had no last name.
What can you tell us about the initial investigation into Andy's disappearance?
So at the beginning, my mom pretty much had the majority of what was going on. She was in contact with everybody with the Columbus Police Department. So we filed the missing persons report, and we're just told to just kind of hang tight. They'll let us know if they hear anything. So I'd say months went by. I'd ask my mom, "Have you heard anything?" No. And we didn't do anything because we thought the police were investigating and doing things. And so I would say, and this is a question that we have to get answered through our new detective, was I want to say a year to a year and a half when we first filed the missing person in January 2007, the case was closed and the family wasn't notified. Whoever the detective was knew that Andy had a warrant and he didn't show up for court, and so they considered him a fleeing felon and not a missing person. So they closed the case. Nobody ever contacted the family. So for, a year, 2 years, we all just kind of thought the police is doing their work. And so when we finally found that out, Mom got a hold of the police department. I believe that they reopened the case. And that's when we got a new detective. We had another worker. He retired. The case was never assigned to anybody else. Then another detective opened the case back up, and then we finally had detectives. She took over the case, and then we have the new detectives. So at the beginning, there were a lot of inconsistencies, and there were a lot of problems with the case because, it was closed. We weren't notified. It was assigned to somebody, and then they retired. Well, in 2006, there wasn't social media. There wasn't Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, and so missing and the human trafficking epidemic hadn't, missing persons really, it wasn't out there. We really didn't know, other than just going down and distributing flyers. We didn't really get any information of what we should do as a family. It was just kind of like, okay, you filed the report, we're working on it, you all rest easy. If we hear something, we'll let you know. And so we weren't really aggressive. Does that make sense? We weren't really aggressive in our search in the beginning because, and again, we still thought maybe he had taken off, that he had with his thing, he just might have left. I'd say after a couple of years when we had absolutely no contact with him whatsoever, that we really believed that something had happened, because that was so unlike Andy. Even when he was down and out and at his lowest, that last year in 2006, he still made contact with my mom regularly. So to go from that to absolutely nothing, I think that's when it really kind of kicked in with the family of, there's something going on here. He wouldn't have gone this long without getting a hold of us.
How long was Andy's case closed?
From 2008 to 2013, it was closed and reopened and closed, reopened.
Once Andy's case was reopened, did the police speak to the people that Andy last lived with?
The detective spoke with him, and it seems like that they were in the same problem with drugs, and it was hard to get any information, but she felt that the things that they told her were accurate. She had no reason not to believe them.
So not only did opening the investigation back up allow the police to speak to the people Andy was last living with, But it also gave you guys an important clue about his car, and again, also comes back to the people that Andy was last living with. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. The way that it kind of works is he was living with a couple in the Hilltop area, and that couple, one of their brothers, worked on cars, and so that's where they took the car over to. And so they said that, Andy stopped over with a blonde girl, told him what it needed to be fixed on the car, and that he would be back, and then he didn't come back. So in July, they went to the courts. One of the brothers went to the courts to try to have a salvage title, an abandonment title, and put it in his name. For some reason, it was denied. We really can't find out why. So then they put the car in his mom's name. The brother who had the car, they put it in his mom's name. Then the title was transferred a couple of times. There was one sale that they were going to sell it to a friend. Well, he didn't come up with the money, so they just transferred the title back to their name, and it's still registered to that family group, that family unit. So we didn't know about the car until in 2015. That's when we found out about the car.
This information had to have given you guys a bunch of new questions.
Oh, it opened up a ton of questions because the first was, why is it taking so long for them to find this information? And then the second was, we had a connection. We had somebody here that was the last person that saw him. There for a while, we didn't even know the last names of the people that he was staying with over in the Hilltop area. So as a family, we had no leads. We had nothing. We knew the first names of the people. We didn't know the last name. We didn't know anything about, we had nothing to go off of. So 2015 is really when the glass ceiling was kind of broken off of our family, because this is when what happened was, it was a Saturday morning, and I was watching the news while my boyfriend was getting ready, and they said, coming up next, local family searching for, a missing person, Andy Chapman. Well, this is at 5:50 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm like, oh, my gosh, I start screaming. I'm like, JD, get in here. What's going on? And so I called every family member at Saturday morning at 6 o'clock. The only person I could get a hold of was my brother, Mark. 10 TV used to do a missing persons every Saturday. They'd highlight a case every Saturday. Well, just so happened to be that Saturday is the day that she picked for Andy. So my brother and I just sat on the phone, in silence and watched him on TV, watched the story on TV, just shocked. We didn't know that she had picked Andy to be on TV. So, by sheer coincidence, I was up that morning, and I really believe that. I really believe that there was a reason I was up that morning, and it really kind of broke the glass ceiling off this case because, it validated the fact that he was missing. It validated the fact for the family that he didn't just take off, that he is truly missing. And so that's kind of when everything started rolling. That's when we met with her as a family the very next month. When we were able to talk about the case, the things that we had. Andy's ex-wife found some documents that she had from when Andy was residing with her that helped us pull together some other information, some other leads. That's when I started the Facebook page and getting his name out. So really about 2 years ago 2015 is when, about 3 years ago is when things really started taking off with the case, at least for our family's sake.
I know it's been almost 12 years, but did your detective ask these people if maybe Andy left any belongings in the car that you guys could get back?
No, she did not ask that, and they didn't have any reasonable cause to be able to search the car.
Do you know if rental car records have been checked to see if Andy did rent a car?
I don't know, but I don't think they did.
What are your thoughts now about Andy's disappearance?
These people are such persons of interest for our family because not only were they were the ones that he was living with at the time that he went missing, but they also are the ones that have the car still and are the last ones that saw him. And they also left town after Andy went missing, per the detective, so that they could get clean and sober. I said, well, what do you mean they left town? She said, well, they said they went way, way, way out of town to get clean and sober, and then they came back. Detective Perry also said she asked them, well, what would you guys do if somebody overdosed? And she said that they both freaked out and were like, whoa, that's hardcore. We've never seen anything like that. We've never seen anything like that. So that's our gut.
Do you think it's going to be more difficult to find an answer of what happened to Andy with all the time that was lost with the investigation being closed?
We've lost valuable time. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could have followed up on, but the time frame, like the phone records, the time frames too long to be able to do that, find information about a bank account, that's too much time has gone by there, so we're losing a lot of information just because of the time wasted and the time it's taking so long to do these things that they need to do. But I understand they have a lot of missing persons cases, and maybe the adult ones aren't as important as children, but to me it is, because he is my child. He is my son, no matter how old he is.
Sometimes with missing person cases, there are tips or sightings called in. Have you guys had many tips or sightings?
No, and that's what the detective says, is that she said that it's as recognizable as Andy's face is, as distinguishable as his facial features are. She says she is shocked at how little leads, tips they get for him. She said, people call all the time, oh, I think I saw so-and-so, or, they get tips all the time. And she said for Andy's case, there is so little. The two tips that we've gotten, we got one gentleman that saw Andy this summer. Andy actually stayed with his family the summer of 2006. As soon as I made the Facebook page, he reached out to us. So we were able to connect him with Detective Perry. We had another gentleman, like I was telling you about the picture that we had, the possible sighting. We had a truck driver out of California who thought he saw Andy. He took a picture of him. He sent it to us. It wasn't. And then the lead that we had from his old friend from high school. Those were the three that we have had come in through the social media, and those are just recent. But even the detective says that it's shocking how little she gets, and maybe that's because it's not out there. There's not a lot out there, but no, there's nothing. We've done Social Security checks. I believe that every year they run Andy's Social Security number to see if there's been any job post, anything on the social that, job post. He got a gained employment, renewed his driver's license, filed a tax return, speeding ticket, nothing. There's been no hits on his social in 12 years. We've also checked close family members that Andy was close to. We've checked their Social Security numbers as well to see if maybe he was using their information. There's been no abnormal activity. So there's been nothing. There's been absolutely nothing with his name, his social, across the United States with his social in 12 years. So that means he hasn't, like I said, gotten a driver's license, renewed a driver's license, got a ticket, got a job, anything like that you would require your Social Security number. Nothing.
Do you think that the sighting from his high school friend could have been credible?
I don't know. I really couldn't tell you, because when he first contacted me, he just wrote a comment on the Facebook page and said something like, I don't care about Brian. I know that I saw Andy in the cab of my truck before I went to truck driving school. And so I emailed him and I said, hey, do you have any more information? And then he said, no, it was when I was a cab driver. That's when I picked him up in 2008. So I gave him I gave Detective his information. for her to contact Tim to see if he had any further information. But I mean, it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility that he could have seen him. But when we got that email from that guy in California, I mean, it was absolutely amazing to see the effects of social media. My friend who lives here in Ohio, he shared Andy's picture. Well, his buddy, the truck driver, and he lives in California. He was in, I want to say, Arizona, and he saw some guy fall in the middle of the road. So he pulled over his semi to help this guy. He's like, "Are you okay? You're really banged up." So he took a picture of the side of the guy's face so he could show it to him. The guy said, "I'm on my way to Ohio for a very important event." He's like, and the guy's like, "Well, I can't get you anywhere. Obviously, I'm a truck driver. I can't take you." He's like, "But just you need to rest, get your face cleaned up." He had all these, scratches and stuff where he fell. And then the guy took off. The truck driver took off. Well, he saw Andy's picture, and immediately texted us. And so the picture, I'll tell you what, Kelly, I blew it up and shrunk it so many times. And then I did a side-to-side, comparison of Andy's face and this guy's face. And then I did a close-up of the ear to see if it matched, and a close-up of the nose to see if it matched. And there was just enough similarities that you were like, oh, my gosh, just maybe. But in the back of your mind, you were like, his ears look totally different. It's not him. Quit getting your hopes up. But just maybe, he's been on the streets. He might be a little bit rougher. But the fact that somebody from California saw that and contacted us, that's the power of getting these people's faces out here. That's the power of Missing Persons from Ohio. That's the power from the Facebook pages that you guys do and the podcast, that these people's faces are getting out there, and not just for Andy's case, but for all the missing. These faces need to be seen.
You guys as a family made the decision to have Andy declared deceased. Can you tell us about that?
When we decided to declare Andy deceased in 2013, and I believe it was 2013, and there was a couple of reasons that we did that. The detective, we wanted to be assured that the case would not be closed if the missing person case would not be closed if we just declared Andy deceased. And so that's when detectives said no, it would still be ongoing. Andy's name was still attached to his ex-wife's home, and she could not get him removed. And then also we wanted to see if we could get any assistance to help out with his son. The family, has stepped up, obviously, in helping with her, financially, getting him clothes, that type of thing. Since Andy's not able to, he's not around it, to help out with that. So we've stepped up as a family to help her, raise him. But that was one of the reasons that we did decide to declare him deceased, was so that we could get some financial help for his son, and then also to so that his ex-wife could remove his name off of the home deed. But we didn't want the case to be closed, and we were sure that it was not if we declared him deceased, and that was in 2013 that we did that.
What advice would you give other families that have a missing loved one?
To pray a lot, have a support group, talk about it. You can't keep all that hidden down inside of you. It'll just, I don't know the words to say. It makes it so much worse. You don't have a family member to talk to it about and to cry and just let all those feelings out and just keep praying, like I said, and have hope and just keep on going one day at a time.
I would like to thank Judy and Amy for taking the time to speak with me. Now here's a summary of what I have learned through my investigation and from what we heard tonight. Andy Chapman was living the American dream as a devoted husband and loving father with a great job. He visited and communicated regularly with his family. Then addiction struck. Within 1 year, everything had changed. Andy fought to clean up his life, but the addiction won. After bouncing from house to house, he finally settled with a family that we know very little about. This family not only was the last people Andy lived with, but also the people that still to this day have Andy's car, a car that was thought to be missing with Andy. These people are quite possibly the last people to see Andy in January 2007. The Columbus Police Department closed Andy's case from 2008 to 2013 without ever notifying the family, a decision they made due to Andy failing to appear for court on a drug possession charge. According to the Columbus Police Department, they considered Andy a fleeing felon. In my opinion, not only is it wrong that Andy's case was not taken seriously, but to not notify the family feels very wrong to me. Because of this decision, precious time was lost, and with each counting day, the family is losing potential evidence due to how long ago it was. One thing that proves most effective in finding a missing person is getting their face out there. Andy went missing December 2006 and didn't get his first news coverage until 2015. There are some things being done in the investigation that can't be mentioned, but again, it seems to be a lengthy process, leaving the family waiting yet again. I will continue to work with Amy and Judy investigating Andy's disappearance, and will keep listeners updated if any new information becomes available. If you would like to follow Andy's case, please visit the Help Find Andy Chapman Facebook page. There is a link in the show notes. The page is ran by Amy, so feel free to reach out to her about Andy's disappearance. Me and the family would greatly appreciate if you could take the time to share Andy's face. Photos can be found on Help Find Andy Chapman and Missing in Ohio Facebook pages. Andrew Chapman is a white male that is 6 foot tall, weighing 175 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Andy was 32 years old at the time of his disappearance and would be 43 years old today. If you have any information on the disappearance of Andy Chapman, please contact the Columbus Police Department at 614-645-4545. Missing in Ohio is an affiliate of Missing Person from Ohio. Missing Person from Ohio is a Facebook page ran by Lori Davis devoted to raising awareness. Here's a message from Lori on how Missing Person from Ohio can help if you have a missing loved one.
Missing Person from Ohio is an outlet for those with missing loved ones where we can publicize their case. I can help ensure that they are listed on the correct organizations. I can talk to the family members about steps that they can take to try to help keep the publicity out there for their missing loved one. And I can also just work with that family to let them understand that someone cares, that we are a group of individuals that really want to help, and we're doing this for the right reasons. We're doing everything that we can to help them bring their missing loved one home. And if we're not able to bring them home, we can at least help support them during the time while they're missing.
If you have a missing loved one and would like us to help tell their story, please contact us in one of the many methods listed in the show notes. Missing in Ohio can be found on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, and many of the other platforms you enjoy. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at missingpersonsinohio@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Missing in Ohio, Chapter 1, The Disappearance of Andrew Chapman. Tune in next time for Chapter 2, The Disappearance of Rosemary Rapp.